The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, figuring they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
A year ago, the Commanders were 7-3, coming off a loss to the Steelers, the first of 3 straight losses. But they spun out of the skid and won their last 5 games. Went to Tampa, won a wild card game. Went to Detroit as heavy underdogs and easily beat the Lions 45-31. The magic carpet ride came to an end the following week in Philadelphia. But this has turned into an absolute nightmare for a team that has now lost 5 consecutive games. The last 4 games by 22, 21, 24, and 22. And over the last 3 weeks, their yards margin has been minus 172, minus 128, and minus 246. 246. I mean, the numbers are just staggering yesterday for the Detroit Lions. Never mind, they won the game by 22 points. They had 546 yards of offense, 226 of that on the ground, 320 yards passing. They only had 3 penalties, which resulted in 1 yard. This was incredible. And, often when a team will give up 44 points, it's because the offense turned the ball over. They didn't. No turnovers in this game. This was all on the defense. All on the defense. The offense wasn't great, but was good enough to at least keep this a competitive game. It wasn't competitive because the defense is that bad. And it's hard to believe that this is the same team, essentially. I mean, they made a few additions and subtractions from last year's team, but this was the team that was ready to take the next step, we thought. Like, okay, the learning curve that goes on every year with a rookie quarterback, and this is a special quarterback, and he's still playing under a rookie deal, so it's kind of a go-for-it year, this year and next year. And what they're going for is the toilet bowl. Aside from Cincinnati, I haven't seen a defense worse than this one. And even the numbers don't indicate what a whitewash it was and just how unbelievably dominant that Detroit was. I put this out on Twitter, and having been at this Super Bowl, it was Super Bowl 22, and it's remembered for Doug Williams being the MVP, and he should have been. He threw 4 touchdown passes in the second quarter. But Timmy Smith, who was truly a flash in the pan, had 204 yards rushing against a defense that had absolutely no answer for him. And this was the same thing yesterday with the Washington defense, as Jahmyr Gibbs averaged 9.5 yards a carry, 142 yards rushing, which is a spectacular game for any running back. And he usually comes along with anywhere from 25 to 30 carries. He had only 15 carries. 15 carries for 142 yards, plus he caught 3 passes for 30 yards, 2 touchdowns in the blowout. John Keim has been covering this team for 25 years, maybe longer, and he's seen it all. He saw the entire Dan Snyder era. He saw the game that I look back on in the archives just before I came on the air, just to remember how bad it was. The last game that Jay Gruden ever coached, which was in October of 2019, and they lost to the New England Patriots and Tom Brady on the road 33-7 to drop to 0-5, and that was it for Jay. 442 total yards for the Patriots. Tom Brady was, Tom Brady. He threw 3 touchdown passes, 348 yards in the game. Colt McCoy, 18 of 27, no touchdowns and an interception, and was sacked 6 times. The defense of the Patriots pretty much did in Washington in that game. Brady was Brady, and Brady put up points. In this case, it wasn't the offense that killed him. The offense was adequate. The defense was horrendous. How bad was it? Here's Keim.
They are one of 3 teams in the last 35 years to give up 20 or more points in 4 consecutive losses. So that's these guys, Miami in 2019, when they lost almost just about every game, including the 17-16 game to Washington, the Redskins down in Miami, then also Arizona in 2002. Also, it's the most points Washington has given up in a 4. Actually, I'm going to go back too. it's the first time they've lost 4 straight by 20 plus that the team has lost by that much since 1954. Also, the most points they've given up in a 4-game stretch since 1954. This is really, really bad. And at least on offense, you can look at it and say, well, shoot, you don't have your starting quarterback, most important position in sports. You don't have 2 of your top 3 receivers. You have nobody who can threaten anybody really down the field. Understandable that they may only get 22 points against a pretty good defense. But what's gone on defensively is just inexcusable. And there's no, like I said, I don't know how they get out of this, because they've tried to change things. They've tried to, and I know we'll get to that in a minute. I know exactly what you're thinking about. They have pared things down. You see the Joe Witt down on the sidelines today. You see coaches on the side holding up cards for certain calls, as the play gets signaled in or called or radioed in. And you see them holding up, cards for some sort of, whether it's coverage or whatever it is, you're seeing them hold it up. They're trying to help with all of that. They're trying to help the execution. It's just not working. And I think that's the tough part here, is what is the next step? And listen, we all know what the next step could be if this doesn't get turned around, because at some point, if you, like we keep hearing, they have really good practices, and really good practices, and it is not translated to any sort of on-field success, because it's funny, because Quan Martin said it's something different every game, but the thing is, it's almost the same thing every game, because it's a mistake here, it's a mistake there, and the results look the same. I don't know, and this is something I want to go back and look at on Next Gen Stats to see the separation that some of those Detroit receivers were getting. It was unreal how wide open they were at times. This is when they've pared things down. That's the problem. This isn't about where the defensive coordinator is in the booth or on the field. There's so many deeper issues with what's going on with this defense, whether it's personnel or coaching, it's not working. And we know that. And that's the thing that they're going to have to decide. What is the number one thing here? Is it the personnel? Do they not have the players to not so much even in the right spots, but the right players at those spots? That, whether it's safety, whether it's corner, whether it's defensive line, linebacker, all over, folks, we know that. And so I think they're going to have to look at all that. I did ask Dan Quinn after the game if, what you've changed this, you've changed this. They've changed a lot of things within the practice structure to try to help with this. And again, nothing has worked. And it's funny because people were asking some of the players after the game, like, was there an impact with Joe Witt on the sidelines? Like, they scored 44 points. They didn't force a punt. I don't think there was any impact.
No, there was no impact. And on top of that, here's something I wonder about with Joe Witt down on the sideline. This loss of cool, was it in some way related to that the defensive coordinator now could be in their face? You had Daron Payne just haul off and slug Amon-Ra St. Brown in the helmet, which is one of the stupidest things you can do on a football field because, A, you get kicked out of the game, and B, you can break your hand. I don't know if he got hurt on the play, but he was done for the day. He was out. Then we also had unsportsmanlike conduct penalties on Javon Kinlaw and Quan Martin. Kinlaw said that St. Brown hit Payne before he threw the punch. I looked at the video. I haven't seen anything like that, but he said that happened. And then you had Quan Martin saying that in the pile he got kicked in the fellas. Well, I don't know whether that was inadvertent or not, but that set him off. And it wasn't a positive. It was, you'd have to say, a negative. And on top of that, it was a little confusing to me last week as to who made the call on this. This was Dan Quinn on Monday of last week after the debacle against Seattle, where he had announced that he was going to move Joe Witt from the press box down to the field. It sounded here like this was a Dan Quinn decision.
Joe will move down from the press box onto the field this week. And we're going to dig in hard on changes we can make, to make an impact and make a difference. And that's one that we will do.
What are the possible advantages? How does that help?
The advantages, Joe's, obviously an excellent communicator and teacher, and so when a play comes in and you need to go get it corrected right away, you can get right to it. And when the advantage of seeing the game from the highest point, JP, especially on the defensive side, he gives you a specific vision of a route and things to go, and you can be ahead of it. That's the advantage of it. And so for him being down on the field, we just felt like it's a change that needs to be made, and get into that space. And it may not be forever, but that's what we need at the moment.
Well, it clearly wasn't needed or didn't help yesterday. But again, there's no mention in that little exchange with the media last Monday about Witt asking to be moved down. It sounds to me, and he didn't say that it was totally his decision, but it sounds like that was a Dan Quinn decision. Joe Witt, when he had his opportunity, and the coordinators talk every Thursday, when he talked to the media on Thursday, he's claiming, this last week, he's claiming it was his idea.
I went and asked him to do that for a number of reasons. The first reason I've been in the box, Q, most of the coordinators that I've been around called it from the box. Q, Capers, Mike Pettin. Even when I was in college, the guys, the coordinators always called it from the box. You have a good view. You can see. You don't really have to have as much help with personnel, people coming in and out. So that's why the advantage of being in the box. Moving to the field, I think the energy that I have in practice that can be probably positive within the game for the players. A couple of the guys have been asking for me to come down as well. And so I think it's time for that to happen. We got to do whatever we have to do to get a win. And so the play has not been, especially this last week, to the standard at all. And like I said, that starts with me. I got to do a better job getting the coaches to get the players to understand how we're going to do it. And we got to get this thing turned. We got to get it turned right now.
Well, Quinn wasn't asked directly, are you going to fire Joe Witt? But the indication is he's not making any changes. Now, we saw yesterday that Detroit had their head coach calling the plays. Dan Campbell had a play sheet in front of him, and he admitted that he did it to shake things up. Dan Quinn is a former defensive coordinator. He doesn't have to fire Joe Witt. I don't think that does any good, but could he take over the play calling? He's indicating he's not doing that. The move from the press box down to the field, was it a positive? Absolutely not. Von Miller says it wasn't a negative.
How did it impact you guys to have Witt on the sideline with you for this game? Was there an impact?
I thought he always did a good job, whether it was upstairs or downstairs. What's going on is definitely not, the coaches. They have us super prepared. Like I said before, we're physically prepared, mentally prepared, emotionally prepared. DQ does a great job of keeping the morale going and, holding on to the standard that we've set. I'm not sure what a disconnect is, but, we'll keep working to figure out a solution for sure.
Well, it's out of time, really. And we're going to get to the question in the bye week as to whether or not we'll see Jayden Daniels again this year. Once they get to that point, we got 7 games left to go. So there will be 6 games left. And I would say this, if the team was 7-3 instead of 3-7, you'd see him start in Madrid. You can play with that injury. Kurt Warner talked about it last week. He played with it. In fact, I saw him play against the Commanders when he was with Arizona in 2007. His numbers weren't that bad, and the following year, age 37, I believe, he led the Cardinals to their first and only Super Bowl. They lost, and it was a great game against Pittsburgh, but he played well. And I would think that if there were something on the line, which there no longer appears to be, I mean, it would take a miracle. They'd have to run the table, and even then, it's not even a sure thing that they'll be in the playoffs at 10-7. So the season is essentially over at this point, and this defense can't stop anybody. So I don't think there's much chance of any wild turnaround. But it is absolutely baffling how a team could be this good last year and this bad this year. Not that the defense was the 85 Bears last year, but they're like the 85 Bears playing today right now. If you ran Dan Hampton and those guys out on the field today in their 60s, they might be able to perform better than this defense has this year. And remember, going into this season, a lot of the talk was, they won a lot of games on the last play, and the pendulum may swing the other way. They're not even in position to be a factor at the end of games anymore. These games have been over in the third quarter, sometimes by halftime. And there doesn't seem to be light at the end of the tunnel here. You can talk about, we correct this, we correct that, simple thing here, simple thing there. No, it's beyond that. It's a defense that's old, and it's a defense that isn't very good, and a defense that continues to get beat up. Trey Amos knocked out of the game with an ankle injury. We'll find out more about him today, whether he can go. He's been one of the few bright spots for them in the secondary. Deron Payne, who started off well, had a good start to the year. He's in a contract year. Knucklehead. You don't get thrown out of a game like that yesterday by throwing a punch right in front of the referee. What are you thinking? So, it's kind of nostalgia here because we used to have a lot of discussions like this on Monday morning during the Dan Snyder era. It's not that, and the fact that Snyder no longer owns the team makes this 900,000% better. But the performance of the team at the moment is very much like it was in the dog days of Snyder. It's terrible. And one thing that Adam Peters said at the end of last season when asked about, the next step for this year, he said, well, each year is completely different. And boy, are we seeing that now. That's not to say that they couldn't make some moves in the offseason and have really good draft and have some good health for Jaden Daniels and be a great team again next year. But they are so far away from what they were last year. It's unbelievable. And just on the Jaden Daniels thing, people are already murmuring about RG3. It's not RG3. The knee injury didn't end RG3's career. It's the fact that he didn't spend time in the tape room like Daniels did. And Randall Cunningham, who played 16 years in the NFL and was with Philadelphia a great talent. He wasn't properly coached there. Buddy Ryan was the coach of the team. He didn't care about the offense. He just let Randall run around. Randall Cunningham, properly coached, might have been one of the great quarterbacks of all time. And people look at Jaden Daniels and say, oh, look how slight he is. Randall Cunningham, who played in an era where you could clobber the quarterback, it's not like today, played 16 years. He missed 1 year with a knee injury, but by and large was healthy for 16 years. Randall Cunningham, 6'4", 212 pounds. Jaden Daniels, 6'4", 210. Basically the same body type. It's just a matter of protecting himself a little bit better, and also some of these injuries have been flukish. The injury that knocked him out with the hamstring, he was in the pocket. He wasn't running. The knee injury, we're not sure exactly how that happened. And Dan Quinn admitted it. He shouldn't have been in the game in the blowout to dislocate his elbow. But I don't think we're looking at RG3-2 here. I just don't. And I think he's going to play, and I think he's going to play maybe even the last 5 games of the season, maybe 4. But we'll see him again and should, because he's only had about 25 starts. He's still developing as a quarterback. And I think that the panic over seeing him play out the rest of his career, always injured, I don't think it's come to that yet. All right, more reaction from the debacle yesterday, what Dan Quinn says, what Marcus Mariota says, and more. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
And guess what, kids? We got some breaking news, and this should not be a surprise. The NFL has announced that Deron Payne has been suspended a game without pay for striking Amon-Ra St. Brown in last night's game. Immediately unclear if he plans to appeal. Now, we had this last week with Frankie Louvu, who was suspended a game for violating the terms of the hip drop tackle rule. But the third time that he was fined for that was on a play against Seattle, which he wasn't even flagged. There's nothing to dispute here. Deron Payne, like an idiot, hauled off and slugged Amon-Ra St. Brown in the helmet and got kicked out of the game. Now, Louvu was successful in his appeal. I don't know if Payne is going to appeal, and I wonder if they're going to get this done today, because the plane to Barcelona is leaving tonight. So is Deron Payne leaving on a jet plane, or is he being left behind with a 1-game suspension? That's going to be something to follow today. But I mean, I don't know what you can say about it and defend it. Yeah, I'm on Ross St. Brown, probably getting in his ear. We also had Javon Kinlaw saying that St. Brown threw the first punch. Well, if they can find that on tape, not that I don't think that would mean that this would be overturned. I don't think that factors into it. But if there was a punch, I don't think anybody's seen it. I haven't seen any video of it, and it was clear as day. I mean, he did it right in front of the referee too. Stupid. Just a stupid penalty for a veteran who should have better poise in that situation. And he was the one that gave the pregame speech to fire everybody up. He's the highest paid player on the defense. There was even some thought that he might get a contract extension. Not now. So that is the latest from the NFL. Daron Payne suspended a game without pay. This is how Dan Quinn began his news conference last night.
Visit with the team. We make a big deal about our commander standards, and we sure as hell aren't coaching or playing up to it. We're way off, and that's up to us to fix that. And also told the team it's for us to go away, get it together. Not the worst thing for us. We got to find solutions, where we're at, and doing that together, that's the right space to go do it. So we'll take it on the road tomorrow night, and we have a lot of things to fix. Like I said, we're off course, things to address, and being together is the best way to go do that.
Dan, you've tried different things to fix that defense. None of it has worked. How do you explain that, and how baffled are you by what's going on?
Yeah, we're all obviously disappointed, like just execution, not creating takeaways, the ones to go. And I think, we're why you're seeing that, yeah, that's definitely frustrated, and we all are. Baffled, frustrated, all of that, like all those emotions, John, it's accurate. So we got to channel that, into finding the things that we can do well and play that. Because when we can't, it's, too easy, too difficult, too easy for us, or too difficult, too easy for them, whatever that looks like. But play style, identity, all that, it feels off.
Then what other changes can you even make when you look at that D, whether it's personnel, staff? Are there more things that you can do at this point? Yeah, I understand you have to ask that. Honestly, post-game, I'm not there yet, want to have thoughtful, answers and decisions and personnel. But like I said, I understand you have to ask that, but I'm not there yet to figure it out. So I got a lot to look at tonight as we get into the week, and we have, this game and then a bye. We've got to put everything we can into this week to make sure we can play like we're capable, fix some of these issues. And so to me, that's kind of where my tunnel vision is of start with that.
And he was pushed on Joe Witt, not going to fire him, and apparently not going to take away the play calling duties. Witt, has been the defensive coordinator now for a year and a half, but Quinn is a former defensive coordinator himself, came here from Dallas as the D coordinator, but is indicating he's not going to make any changes. He likes the idea of getting away for a week, everybody getting together, and maybe they can get themselves together. By the way, on the Daron Payne suspension, this just came down from the league, a statement on this. He has violated Rule 12, Section 3, Article 1, which applies to, quote, any act which is contrary to the generally understood principles of sportsmanship. I think that's pretty clear. Holding off and slugging an opponent in the helmet is not part of the principles of sportsmanship, I would say. And it even is specific here, including throwing a punch or forearm. And Rule 12, Article 14, prohibits striking, swinging, or clubbing the head or neck of an opponent with the wrist, arm, elbows, or hands. Well, I think that's as clear as can be. Now, they do say, the league does say, that he is eligible under the collective bargaining agreement to appeal the suspension, and any appeal would be decided upon by either Derek Brooks, Ramon Foster, or Jordy Nelson, the hearing officers jointly appointed and compensated by the NFL and the NFL Players Association to decide appeals. Remember that Luvu's suspension was overturned by Derek Brooks, Hall of Fame linebacker, who, Luvu also a linebacker. I don't know whether any of that is going to play into this, but I think the Luvu suspension was a little bit gray because the third violation of the hip drop tackle, he was not even flagged for. This one, Daron Payne was thrown out of the game. So I can't imagine he's going to win this on appeal, and that's another player that they won't have against a Dolphin team that can run the football pretty well. Marcus Mariota did the post-game news conference yesterday. He played, obviously. We saw before the game Jaden Daniels with his arm in a brace and hugged by his mom, and he seemed to be in good spirits, but obviously not ready to play anytime soon. This was Mariota on how this went in the locker room, not just at the half, but after the game.
Everyone's frustrated, upset, which I think those are emotions that you want to feel at this point. Like, nobody's in there giving up at all. But at the same time, like, we have to figure this out. We got to get it right. Bobby stood up and said something at halftime, and I really appreciate the fact that he led us and said, hey, this is on us. We have to figure it out. It's not just offense. It's not just defense. It's not just special teams. It's on everybody. And at the end of the day, like I said, going into this game, like, I believe in the guys in this locker room. But we have to figure out what it is and what these details are. If we're missing the lack of execution, it takes all of us. So regardless of where we are, at the end of the day, doesn't matter who we're playing, it's on us and how we got to figure out together how we can get this right.
What was DQ's message after the game, knowing you guys are headed to Europe?
Yeah, he basically was very much the same way that I feel and kind of what I said, but also, like, it's a interesting time for our team, and I think it's in a good time to go as a team together early, where we can all kind of sit down and be together for the next 7 days and figure out how we can get this right. So it's interesting how the schedule kind of played out that way, but I do feel like this is a good opportunity for us to, one, figure out who we are and who we want to be, and two, like, just to get this thing right.
Marcus, how far away does it feel from being the team that you think you're capable of being?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I don't feel real close. And at the same time, though, day in and day out, I see guys coming in, giving it their all. So I do feel like we have the motivation, the determination to get this right. But we're running out of games and we're running out of time. So there has to be a sense of urgency, which I do believe there is in the locker room, and we'll figure it out.
Okay. Now, that's a team that's trying to figure it out 10 games into the season, trying to figure out their identity. Good follow-up from John Keim, paraphrasing here. Isn't it a little late to be trying to figure out your identity?
One, I don't think we should shy away from that. I think that's the truth. And I think that's transparency. And at the end of the day, in order to get things going in the right direction, you have to be transparent. You have to be honest. And I don't think we are who we think we are. So with that being said, it's a quick turnaround. It's a trip to Europe. It's an opportunity for us to kind of dive in together. I believe in this brotherhood. I believe in the guys in the locker room. But like I said, there's got to be a sense of urgency, and I think our guys feel that.
Last year, you guys seemed to figure out the identity early in the year. You've been on a lot of teams. Why has it been so hard this year for that?
Every year is very unique. Every year poses different challenges. So with that being said, I don't really know. And I think that's why we are all standing here today, kind of where we're at. So it's going to take a collective effort to get this thing going in the right direction. But with that being said, I believe in these guys.
Marcus, there were lots of Commanders fans heading for the exit before the end of the game. What would your message be to this fan base?
Well, one, we do appreciate the support. We're not where we want to be, and we understand that. Secondly, continue to believe in this team, continue to believe in Q, continue to believe in the leaders of this group, because I've been in very many different locker rooms. I've been in a part of different teams that would have shut this down 2-3 weeks ago. So with that being said, there's fight in this dog. I believe in it, and we're going to get this right.
Well, let's see. We've just learned that Deron Payne is facing a 1-game suspension for slugging Amon-Ra St. Brown in the helmet. There could be an appeal on that, but That also ties in with a couple of unsportsmanlike conduct penalties, which happened in that second quarter meltdown with Javon Kinlaw getting one of them and then Quan Martin drawing another. He said that he got kicked in the you-know-where. But, I mean, you got to be able to overcome these kind of things. And this was Quinn on watching his team essentially melt down.
Yeah. It wasn't like spilling over into the locker room. It was more like I get the frustration, but we've got to find a way to channel our frustration, better or different than that, like a penalties or an actions that, hurt our team. That part, it obviously addressed it hard at halftime about our poise and what it's got to look like and where it goes. And so to see that happen, okay, that's good. But I don't know what the difference in penalties, all those things, man, that can't happen. We're margins are here. And so when you make it harder, that takes away from it. So the frustration is not an excuse, I guess, that I'm trying to say, Nikki.
The team fracturing, given, just the overall frustration of losing?
No, I worry about the emotion of it, but not fracture. They're tight, they're connected, the work's there. Frustration, visibly upset, just why isn't it going, like we want it to. And that's kind of what I was referring to with David earlier a little bit about it's not the worst thing to go together right now. And, it's kind of like not going away to camp, but going away. All right, let's talk through, find these spaces. And it might be these small things that we need to do differently that can add to it. Everybody's searching. We're frustrated, players, coaches, everyone. But ultimately, like I said, first things first, man, just into this week. What can we do better, heading into this game? And then breathe and, okay, next set. And then I'll go from there.
Okay, that's the coach's view. Here's Mariota on the player meltdowns and how that's being viewed among the teammates.
The accountability is there because when you are day in and day out with these guys, you have to be able to look them in the face and say, okay, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And unfortunately, I think with the way the game went today, frustrations did boil over. And I appreciate Bobby because he did say some things at half that, one, I think represented kind of all what we were thinking. And two, hey, setting the standard of who we want to be. So I have no doubt in my mind that we have the group here to get this thing right. And it's going to take some time, but we got to figure it out soon.
It's going to take some time, but we have to figure it out soon. I think we're really looking at next year at this point. Again, if this is going to be a playoff team, it's going to be a miracle playoff team. And what we're seeing on the field doesn't seem to have the makings of that. This was Luvu, who did get to play in the game, such as it was for the defense. At least he stayed until the end, but watching his teammates melt down, including the ejection of Payne, which is now a one-game suspension.
It's a football game. We're going to go back and forth with each other, but at the end of the day, man, that's kind of like whatever their game plan was get us off our game. And, we just got to hold our composure, man, be good at that. And we need everybody. And, it kind of hurt us.
What was the message from DQ after the game?
We just got to find a way, man. We dug ourselves in this hole. We got to dig ourselves way back out of here. So it starts with practice, and it starts with our identity and our culture and all that, everything that comes with it. You know what I mean?
Frankie, what did Bobby talk about at halftime?
He just talked about just staying together. The offense they were trying to get us, their offense trying to get us, chirpy back to them, going back to the rear, whatever it may be. But Bobby just having us stay together and hold our composure, and just making sure everybody doing it 1-11, and we're not hurting the team at the end of the day.
What's the feeling like? What's the feeling like, Frankie, when the other team is just going out there and scoring at every possession, and there's nothing you guys can seemingly do?
I don't know. What do you feel?
I wouldn't feel good.
I feel like I feel the same way. It's tough, man. No comment.
Doesn't sound like there's a lot of answers, a lot of questions. And here's Dan Quinn, 1 year from the Camelot season, where they make it to the NFC Championship game. A season that he went into that made everybody kind of chuckle when he said, I don't believe in rebuilding, I believe in recalibrating. Well, clearly, they're going to have to rebuild from this. Whatever they did last year worked miraculously. Everything they touched turned to gold. Even when they were 7-3 a year ago, it was the start of a 3-game losing streak. So they got to 7-5, but that was the last time they lost during the regular season, and then pulled off a win at Tampa, beat the Lions, getting the Lions to turn the ball over 5 times, and then the magic carpet ride came to an end in Philadelphia. This year, there doesn't seem to be any pulse, anything like that, and Quinn is now having to deal with what he thought would at least be a team that would stay on course that doesn't look anything like the team he had last year.
Yeah, we definitely are. That's why, like the frustration, man. Like I get that, and it's not an excuse. We got to find a way to channel that frustration, like you saw at the end of the half, penalties and actions. Like we can't have it. It's all coming from that, from the frustration, the angst, that feeling, the darkness of it all. Yeah, no one saw that obviously coming. DA about where we're at, but I also told him like that's the chapter in. That's where we are, and we have to be the ones to get it out. I'm not saying it's going to go, this much better, but it has to be. And we're the ones that go do that. We got to be the ones to dig it out, and that's why I kind of just want like everything I can into this game, this moment, and see what we can go get better at. That's what we'll do.
It's strange. The Chicago game this year wasn't anything like last year, but it ended on the last play last year, and it sent the Bears reeling. The offensive coordinator got fired, then the head coach got fired, and now they've reset, and they won yesterday against the Giants, and they're 5-3, and they're looking pretty decent. Washington now 6-3. Washington now off the Chicago game where they had a chance to win, and just a terrible fumble at the end gave the Bears the opportunity to win it on a field goal at the end. They've gone in different directions, haven't they? Bears in pretty good shape now at 6-3, and Washington, having lost the next 4 after that, a 5-game losing streak, now looking a lot like the Bears, except that I don't think you're going to see Cliff Kingsbury get fired. I don't think you're going to see Dan Quinn get fired, but the season is unraveling pretty quickly, and the latest, if you're just jumping in your car, Deron Payne is suspended for a game for slugging Amon-Ra St. Brown yesterday. It's not getting any better. More reaction to the Commanders' mess coming up, plus we got another betting scandal to deal with. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630. Well, Deron Payne, I hope that punch was worth it, because it's going to be very, very expensive. The NFL has suspended Deron Payne for a game without pay for slugging Amon-Ra St. Brown in the helmet during yesterday's 44-22 loss to the Detroit Lions. He is the highest paid player on the defense. Haven't looked up how much he makes, but it's going to be plenty. There could be an appeal, but I don't know on what grounds. The rules are stated very specifically on this one, and that is as much of an unsportsmanlike penalty as you could possibly get. Deron Payne ejected from the game, so that leaves them, assuming he doesn't win the appeal, as Frankie Louvu won his last week, but I think there's more gray area in that one than there is in this one. That's another defender that they won't have against a Miami Dolphin team that can run the ball pretty effectively and beat a very good Buffalo Bills team yesterday, beat them 30-16. And what looked like a sure win, at least they would, get out of it with this one. Washington is a 2.5-point underdog, and that was before the suspension was announced. So we'll see where that goes. But boy, this is going in the wrong direction, and it is going in the wrong direction fast. No changes announced by Dan Quinn. There's speculation that, maybe Joe Witt was going to be fired or at least lose his defensive play calling duties. Nope, that doesn't seem to be in the cards. They moved Witt from the press box to the sideline yesterday. That did a lot of good. And I wonder about this, too, because one of the things that Quinn said in making the move, which, either was asked for by Witt or that was decided by Quinn. It's hard to get a real handle on that. But anyway, the move was made yesterday, and we just saw these meltdowns, these unsportsmanlike conduct penalties, and a star player getting thrown out of the game for doing something really stupid. one of the things that Quinn said was with Witt down on the sidelines, if there was a mistake, he could correct it. Did maybe getting in these guys' faces as they were getting just run over, just flattened by Jahmyr Gibbs, who ran for over 140 yards and averaged 9.5 yards a carry. Is that something that led to this with Witt, maybe driving up their frustration? Who knows? But it didn't work at all. Just did not work. And I'll tell you, it was a rough weekend for teams that I was watching. I watched the Maryland-Georgetown basketball game on Friday night. And I said this going into the game, and I felt the same way. It's like watching the Scab games from 1987 in the NFL. The uniforms are familiar, the players are not. I didn't know a single player on the Maryland team and didn't really want to know them after they shot 25%. Neither team could make a three, but it was a very, very intense game. I'll give them that. But playing at home in a Gold Rush game where everybody's wearing the gold T-shirts and all that, no. It was an awful performance by Maryland, especially offensively, and they got some games to get it right. But that was tough to watch. And then I watched Maryland. I'll get to them. A game they really had to win and dominated by a Rutgers team. They lost that one to not knock them out of bowl eligibility, but there's a pretty slim chance now. That was a game that you looked at and I thought, okay, they can win that and they can win maybe one of the last three and get in. Now they have to win two of the last three, and two of them are on the road, so it doesn't look good. What was positive, as I was watching my son's alma mater in the big noon kickoff, as Indiana was playing at Penn State, and they were heavily favored in this game, as they should be. Penn State has already fired the coach, and Indiana has been one of the top teams in the country all year. They're ranked number 2, but this looked like it was going to go to Penn State. And, you start figuring in your head, okay, they lose this game and maybe they lose the Big Ten championship to Ohio State. That's 2 losses. They can probably get into the playoff. They were down 13 points in the third quarter, and Penn State was just running over them. Penn State took a 24-20 lead on a touchdown late in the game. Like there's less than a minute left. But Fernando Mendoza, in one of the great drives I've ever seen and ending with one of the great catches I've ever seen, threw a touchdown pass with 36 seconds to go to Omar Cooper Jr., leading to this call from Gus Johnson on Fox.
Mendoza in trouble! It's out! Touchdown! Wow! Omar Cooper! Unbelievable! Give him the Heisman Trophy now!
That is the Heisman moment. And for Gus, who lost his voice, I didn't even hear the call live because I'm screaming. I'm watching TV by myself, and I'm screaming. It was just unbelievable. 36 seconds to go. They still had to hold off Penn State because Penn State could have kicked a field goal to send it into overtime. But the defense held, and they held on. And Kirk Cignetti, who doesn't get very excited, he said it was the most improbable victory I've ever been a part of. And there couldn't have been a better place to make it happen. There's a Western Pennsylvania guy, and they actually can have him if they want him, if they want to wait until they're finished, and that may not be until the national championship game, who knows, which I believe is January 19th. But the buyout is relatively small. He could get out of his deal at Indiana for about $15 million, and the Penn State boosters would pay that in a second. But that was an improbable victory and a real thrill for what was really a lost weekend for me, watching teams that I root for. Meantime, you got the Maryland situation, and you've heard me. I have defended Mike Locksley, and I put out on Twitter, maybe running my mouth a little too soon, but after they beat Wisconsin, I said I'm not hearing much from the Locksley bashers or something to that effect, and they've gone on to lose their last 5. A couple of times they played games that they should have won and had leads and couldn't close it out, like against Washington and Nebraska. And then they got embarrassed by Indiana. They gave up 55 points in that one. And then playing a Rutgers team, which was pretty much in the same spot that they were dominated, losing 35-20. Now they're 4-5. They've got Illinois on the road this weekend. They're home against Michigan on the 22nd, and they close out the season on the 29th against Michigan State. Got to win 2 of those 3 to get to be bowl eligible. Doesn't sound like even Mike Locksley is thinking that's a realistic possibility. But here's what bothered me in talking about his team, which is cratered after the 4-0 start.
The development of a young team and an inexperienced team sometimes has its ups and downs, and I can tell you that we're in the middle of a tough stretch for this group, and the young guys, as I told them in the locker room just now, don't understand that now we're running on limited opportunities for some veteran players that have done some good things around here the last 4 or 5 years, and that we're down to playing for pride and opportunities for these guys to extend. And so, as I told them, it's my job to remain positive. It's going to be my job to keep showing up for these guys and coach them through this tough stretch. They've got the commitment from me, the staff, that we'll do that, and we're going to remain positive about it. It may not feel real good right now, but I can tell you that I know this group will keep pushing and we'll keep fighting for each other and finish this thing up the right way.
Okay. 5 years ago, if you talked about the development of a young team, you might have a point. Doesn't work that way anymore in college football. You can't talk about the development of a young team because here's what happens with a young team. The good players off a young team get plucked out and taken to other schools for more money. And you have to have a roster that's ready to win year to year. This is what Indiana's got. They got a lot of transfers, and they got the right guys and the right coach. I'm not saying Mike Locksley isn't the right coach for Maryland, but talking about developing a young team just doesn't make sense anymore. It's all about the cash, and I'll get to a Big Ten cash story in a moment. That doesn't work. You cannot talk about developing a young team because there's no such thing as that anymore. It's year to year. And big turnover on every team in college football every season. Nobody keeps their players because it's a bidding war. And unlike the NFL where they have contracts, there are no contracts. You can go wherever you want. You can go where the cash is. And hanging on to these guys, including Malik Washington, who's one of the best freshman quarterbacks in the country, may not be easy. There's buzz. The buyout, according to sources, is too rich for the boosters. It's nowhere near what it is for Brian Kelly at LSU, but it's about $13 million, and they just don't think that they can raise that. Plus, the deal he has means that he has to get most of the money like 60 days after he's fired, and there's no indication anyway, but there's no real vote of confidence either. Luke Fickley got the vote of confidence at Wisconsin, and they pulled off an upset of Washington. That's not the case at Maryland so far. Locksley asked about evaluating his team. He says, end of season, you wonder if he's going to get there.
I'm not going to evaluate us right now. I mean, I'm sorry. Beat me at the end of the season. I'll have an end-of-season review for you. I'm playing for Illinois, I think it is, next week, and I'm not into the evaluation of us as a program with 3 games left to play. I'm in to tell you I'm going to keep showing up with a positive attitude because this team deserves it. And I'm going to tell you that this team will play with pride the next 3 games. We'll keep trying to build on some of the things we're doing well. The things we aren't, including getting some guys healthy, that's been the main thought process. We'll deal with the end of the season at the end of the season.
If, again, he's there to deal with the end of the season, we'll see. But I would think that he's not going to be fired at least during the year, and who knows what happens in these last 3 games. How you play could have a factor in that as well. The Indiana game wasn't just a loss. It was an embarrassing loss. Now there's this. The Big Ten is on the verge of completing a $2.4 billion investment deal with the California Pension Fund. Now, USC and Michigan, they go, we're good. We got money. We don't want to be a part of this. Well, this is a league deal. It's a 20-year, $2.4 billion deal, and the conference gets the rights to this deal for 10 years. The amount of money that would go to each school would be $135 million. For a school like Maryland, that means a lot. For Michigan and USC, I guess it doesn't. They don't want to be a part of this. Where this is going to go, we'll have to see. But the cash spigot has to be turned on full blast in football now if you want to compete. People wonder about Texas A&M. They didn't blink when they gave Jimbo Fisher $77 million. Now they're undefeated, number 3 team in the country with a new coach, and a lot of it has to do with money. The fact of the matter is, how much cash do you have? And that determines how good your football team is. Speaking of cash and the quest for cash and the small amount of cash that's involved in this is stunning. There are two pitchers, Guardian pitchers Emmanuel Clase and Luis Ortiz, indicted on charges they took bribes from sports bettors to throw certain types of pitches. These pitchers allegedly took several $1,000s in payoffs, a few $1,000s to put their careers and perhaps in many ways their lives on the line. They could be going to jail for a long time for this. And these are pitchers who make a lot of money. They have arrested Ortiz. They have not gotten, as far as I understand it, Clase yet. But the deal was whether a ball at the start of an inning would be a ball or a strike, and the speed of it would be faster or slower than 97.9 miles an hour. Clase is making $4.5 million a year. Ortiz, okay, he's not making $1 million, but he's making $782,000. And these guys are putting their careers on the line for relative nickels. It's nuts. This is Jeff Passan reported the story for ESPN with an explanation.
Prosecutors charged the pair with 4 charges each, and if you add up the potential sentences of those charges, they could be facing up to 65 years in prison. Now, nobody is expecting that to be the ultimate punishment, but it shows the severity of this case and just how seriously the Eastern District of New York, which, remember, was also involved in the indictments unsealed last week against the NBA, Terry Rozier, and some assistant coaches as well. They're taking it extraordinarily seriously because I think they understand, just as Major League Baseball does, this is about the integrity of the sport. And Major League Baseball, if they are found guilty, very likely would levy lifetime bans against them, as they did against Pete Rose and have done against others.
It does feel like we're reporting on this kind of thing more and more often. You mentioned baseball and the integrity of the sport and all that's concerned. How would you characterize the level of concern right now with Rob Manfred and baseball in general?
David, I asked him that question during the World Series because let's not forget, it's not just Emmanuel Clase and Luis Ortiz. Pat Hoberg, one of the best umpires in Major League Baseball, did not gamble on baseball, but somebody under one of his accounts did, and Hoberg was fired. Tucupita Marcano last year, an infielder for the San Diego Padres, was handed a lifetime ban for placing nearly 400 bets on Major League Baseball. And when I asked Manfred this question, he essentially said, we did not legalize gambling, but we have to be involved. We have to be partners with these companies because of the betting integrity services that they provide. And because if gambling is going to be legal around the country and is going to be legal in any number of states, we want to know situations like this that are happening. In the indictment today, it did say Emmanuel Clase started this scheme allegedly back in May of 2023. However, feds were not tipped off to this until one of those betting integrity firms found irregularities in wagers that were placed on those days that Luis Ortiz allegedly threw those pitches that were gambled on.
Okay, so what Manfred is saying, it's important here. They are working with the betting partners. And while you could say, wow, this is leading to this terrible gambling situation, it's flagging it. That's the important thing to recognize here. That once gambling became legal, then the books can flag things like, oh, it's an ordinary amount of money bet on a pitch to start the third inning. I mean, that's what got the senses up to catch these guys. There's also this school of thought. Well, these prop bets, and we're seeing it in all sports, it's led to a couple of suspensions, lifetime suspensions in the NBA as well. These prop bets are what's leading to all this. So would it be possible that they just drop some of the prop bets? David Purdom is a gambling expert. He works for ESPN. He's the guy you see on TV with that chauffeur's cap that he wears all the time. Here's his thoughts on possibly banning prop bets in baseball.
The allegations in the indictments that have impacted players now in Major League Baseball, a player in the NBA, and multiple coaches, The allegations in those are clear violations of the league's gambling policy. Players are not allowed to bet on the league that they play in. Players are not allowed to feed information to gamblers, and they're certainly not allowed to manipulate their performance as part of a gambling scheme. So those allegations violate the league policy. So these players, if they're doing this, are violating the policy. Now, what the leagues can do is talk to the sports books, and they can discuss what type of bets they think are the most vulnerable to manipulation. In these cases, these were bets on the Major League Baseball, or the bets on first pitches and whether they'd be a ball or a strike, or in some cases, whether they would be faster or slower than 95 miles an hour, for example. So maybe they'll look at these bets, talk to the sports books, and say, you know what, we think these are ripe for vulnerable to be manipulated, and we'd like to remove them.
If they can. And one thing about baseball, it's not that exciting to pick who's going to win. You need these prop bets to get people betting, especially on baseball. So we'll see where it goes. But it's an ugly look. But again, because there is legalized gambling, we're finding out about these things. This may have gone on for years, that there may have been players who have been accepting money, even if it's a few $1,000s to throw a ball instead of a strike to start an inning. We just didn't know about it. Now we're finding out, because when there is a lot of money bet on these kind of prop bets, these ridiculous kind of prop bets, if you ask me. But that's what flags it, and that's when you find out, oh, wait a minute, there's something fishy going on here, and it's too bad for these two guys who not only may never play baseball again, they may go to jail. It's possible they could go to jail for a significant period of time. Just incredibly short-sighted in what they did allegedly did for a few $1,000s. Okay, so we'll find out more from Dan Quinn today about the injuries. I guess he'll have some comments on the possible suspension of Daron Payne, who's been suspended for a game without pay pending appeal. I can't imagine that the appeal will be that he'll be upheld. The appeal, say it right, or the suspension will be overturned, I guess is what it is, because it's clear as day. He's punching Amon-Ra St. Brown right in the helmet, which is one of the dumbest things you can do. It gets you kicked out of the game, and you can break your hand on a helmet. But it is what it is, and we're saying that a lot these days for a team that had a lot of promise going into the season, and now looks like they are completely lost, especially defensively. Bram will have more to say on that coming up, and I will see you back here tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.